Namaste, everybody. So nice to join you all. And you can hear me. Volume is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, volume is good. Yeah. Okay, so welcome to our seventh session on the book. This is on the seventh part. And this kind of goes into the next book. And that is what is beautiful. The next book was just completed. Let me just change some settings so that you can hear me properly. Okay. So let's see. What do we want to discuss about the book? This is also one of our last sessions. So today we might do more question answers. I'll do a little bit of wisdom. There's only one chapter, which is chapter 33. And then we'll do Q&A maybe on this part or even other parts of the book. Okay, so that's how we will do today. So this last part, it's an ancient memory. It's a part about what was India like, and that memory expands into a bigger memory in the next book. And I didn't even have this idea 5 years ago when I was asking these questions to Lakshmi Ma. So there is a faint memory of the matriarchal time, long time ago. And this time on earth was there even in Egypt. And Egypt was a very matriarchal society. Uh, this was thousands of years ago. This is even before the pharaohs. So pharaohs saw the three great pyramids. There are three big ones in near Cairo in Giza. There are three big ones. And they came across them. And as far as the spiritual wisdom goes from the goddesses, they were very impressed by these pyramids. And using their thinking, they were wondering what were these pyramids all about. If you ask any of the people who research pyramids, they will, if you even ask, say, AI models, ChatGPT, you ask anybody, they'll say they were built by pharaohs. How do we know? Because there are inscriptions by the kings who built them as their tombs. So then you go a little deeper and you ask them, are you sure there were inscriptions found in the three big pyramids, the Great Pyramid and the two others which are right next to it? Then the answer is no. For these three, there were no inscriptions. Okay. So all the inscriptions were found in smaller pyramids. So then you have to reimagine history, how it would have unfolded. Imagine these pharaohs walking in Egypt and looking at these three big pyramids and thinking thoughts. And maybe one of the thoughts was eternal life. Maybe uh, if I can build myself a pyramid like this, there are those thoughts about, you know, preserving your body and coming back one day in that body. All of that thinking is going on. So all of the inscriptions were found in the smaller pyramids, not in the three big pyramids. Okay, so these pyramids come from even before the pharaohs. The goddesses say they were built with the combination of angels and humans. There is no way to lift a stone the size of my room on a height of 10th floor. There's no way to lift that. You cannot do that with ropes and pulleys. Recently, they made an effort using a crane to try to replicate building a pyramid. It could not even build 10% of the pyramid using the most modern cranes. And the flatness of the stones in the pyramid, it is so flat that some books say it is 25 times flatter than the flat stone which are in the Empire State Building in New York. How is that possible? So maybe it's just a complete flat cut by what? By chisels? Cannot be, right? So there was a mystical time, a time where matter and spirit came together more. It was a matriarchal time. And there is a time like that coming on earth where Lakshmi Ma says, it'll be a multi-dimensional earth. So there'll be humans, but a lot of the humans will have their third eyes open. And you literally also see angels, and it'll be all kinds of energies will be on earth. And that is how it was in the past. So when the earth evolves into the fifth dimension, then there are beings of light, there are rainbow body beings, there are human beings, there's goddesses, it'll be a different world. And that is what the world was once upon a time in Egypt and even in ancient India. It's not too far-fetched to imagine that kind of world, because just because it's invisible does not mean it does not exist. And pyramids and some of these creations point to a time which was definitely beyond human capability. So, what was this time like? What was humanity like at the time? And all the evidence in different cultures point to a time where it was much more matriarchal. So, our history goes back about 5,000 years. We don't know anything what happened before 5,000 years ago. It's just a guess. So there were there was a time where humanity uh, lived in Egypt. Lakshmi Ma says in Egypt, there was a big spiritual awakening. And in this time, society was more matriarchal. So elderly women, they were the leaders. Just like elephants also, there are six elderly elephant females that run the tribe. The male elephant is 1.5 times heavier than a female elephant. At the same time, there is no problem in elephant tribes because six female elephants run it. So if the male tries to be funny, the six females can come together and ward him off. Kind of like our Devi circle concept. That is why we're creating these circles. It literally is true at some level. If there are six women who are like spiritual friends, heart to heart, and they are there for each other always, it becomes harder for men to abuse them or all the things that you hear about, all kinds of abuse and this and that, because it creates some strength. And that's one of the reasons also to create Devi circles in India and many countries to just build that strength with women. But there's some DNA in spiritual growth. It's somehow spiritual growth happens much easier, much quicker when women come together this way. There's something about biology, something about spirituality. It goes deeper in deeper dimensions. And as these women would come together, there were these matriarchal temples. You see evidence of that in Egypt even now. And these temples celebrated this feminine power. You can see that in some of their big statues and in the imagery, you can see that. All the goddesses, Isis and Hathor and all the different Sekhmet, all those different goddesses, they were super powerful. And you see that in the images, and you saw that in the society. And it was a matriarchal Egypt, which is very different from today. And it was even more ancient than, in some ways, than India. It all kind of, that was like the center at the time. And then it came to India, and India was matriarchal till even 1000 AD. This is what the new message is coming in the next book, which is the last chapter of seventh part of the first book. So we have Kul Devi in every family, and um, matriarchal temples, yogini shrines, riverbanks, even in graveyards. There was these tantric paths. There were women's circles everywhere, and they were the leaders, spiritual leaders. South India was very much into this. And then the Vedic Brahmanism, the male trinity, it came from Sanskrit and came from Vedas. And they also mention some goddess. Can't be just like one woman leader. That's not the point. We're not appointing one queen that will make the whole world matriarchal. That's not the point. It's not a society of ambition. It's a society of love. It's not a society of control. It's a society of freedom. It's not a society of power dynamics. It's a society of compassion, even for animals, trees, everything. So just the dynamic is different. Right now, the dynamic is just, who can control more power, who can exploit Earth. Earth is not even seen as a living being. Even trees are not seen as living beings. Some people don't even see animals as same level. Animals are not seen at the same level as humans. We consume like more than at least 90 was many years ago, now even more. 90 billion large animals each year just for food. 90 billion. We only are like 8 billion human beings. And on this earth, we consume 90 billion animals. And that's really one of the biggest causes of global warming. Food is 40% of climate change problem. 40%. That's what all the scientists say. Because you have to create, you know, you have to, do deforestation, create all the grasslands for the animals to graze, and all that cutting of trees. That's basically then leading to so much carbon in the air and other methane problems with the animals, and all of that is creating this global warming problem. And 40% of it is just with food. The same amount of food that you eat as vegetarian will be, and same pounds or kilos of food you eat as animal meat, the amount of resources used for producing the same amount of animal meat and same amount of, let's say, vegetable protein, the ratios are crazy. It's like it could be something like 50 times because the whole animal has to feed every day, every day, every day. All of that food, water, everything has to be consumed. And then that becomes animal meat. So natural resource use is significantly more in terms of global warming, in terms of all of that. And the whole earth is in trouble right now, meaning earth is not in trouble. Earth cannot be in trouble. Earth will survive. Humanity is in trouble. 40% of climate change is food, which is connected to our eating habits, and that will cause polar ice caps to melt. and we'll have very little land left. Then what we eat has to do with whether humans will survive or not. And all of this mentality is coming from this patriarchal mindset. The mindset is about exploiting the resources, everybody out for themselves. Nothing is alive. Even our body, most of the time, we're just living in our heads. We don't even feel our bodies as alive. We're not embodied. We're not feeling, we're not feeling nature. We're not connecting. We're not feeling our own bodies. Forget feeling the trees or the animals or any of that. We don't even feel ourselves. We're just living in the head. We wake up, we watch TV, we do social media, we go back to sleep, and the mind is continuously running. And all those wonder moments of childhood, all those wonder years, we just remember them every now and then. We'll go for a vacation and aha, oh, I used to feel like that when I was a child, and then you forget about it. So life is very unnatural right now. And with this unnatural life, which has come from Kali Yuga, the patriarchy, now there's a shift, and the shift is happening back to an old time where women's circles were big and they were in leadership. And last chapter is basically talking about all of that, all of that wisdom of heart, living from the heart, not just the mind. Political leaders don't need so much, they don't need to be geniuses. Solutions are simple. Everybody knows what the solutions are. It's not that complicated. You just need to have a heart, and you need to have many more people with a heart and do what needs to be done. And we can all survive. So it doesn't take an Elon Musk or a genius to solve Earth's problem. What is needed is this feminine leadership. And it's rising, it's coming. The goddesses are coming. And the big hope is women come together. The next revolution is not going to be communism versus capitalism versus socialism versus some ism. It's going to be feminine rising, feminine values rising, soul feelings rising, love, joy, compassion, they are rising. That comes in leadership. So mothers should not only be running families, mothers should be running corporations, mothers should be running politics. The mother's heart is needed to run a country. A mother's heart is needed to run a company. Do you know all countries and companies that are run by women, like in corporations also? They've done research. They make much better decisions. There's research out there on women CEOs. I'm not saying every woman is a feminine person. Women who are CEOs often tend to be very masculine. And I'm not saying every male who is a CEO is very masculine. Males can be very feminine. We're not talking about male versus female. We're talking about feminine versus masculine. The divine feminine, that nurturance of a mother, that heart, that love, that joy, that freedom, that has to come into leadership, that interconnectedness. The closest you can imagine is a movie like Avatar. Have you seen Avatar? A lot of people. That connection you feel with the earth, with the trees, with the animals, that magical earth we could be living in. That's really possible. When bodies get so enlightened, there's miracles, there's magic, there's connection, there's energy that connects in every way. So the earth could be a paradise. But we're living in these silos. And the world is right now, I mean, these 2 years are very tough years. You can see all the problems that are happening. And Goddesses are like women get together, make circles, meditate together, and men also, Deva circles also get together. The reason they're a little bit gender-based is not because something very conservative about it. No, nothing like that. It's only to go very deep. If you put three men and three women together in a circle and you try to do a lot of this emotional exchange and like how yesterday you were there, right? Some of you were there. We ran a Devi circle yesterday in Mumbai at Enchante Studio. Some of you were there. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences. Um, in fact, I should play from yesterday, if I can find it, one of our last songs that we were playing. We can play it right here. You'll feel the energy. If I can find it. I didn't do that. Anyway, so what I was sharing with you was there was this energy created yesterday, and I think people could feel it, right? It was, now I got to turn the sound off. Yeah. The energy was just beautiful. We did this for 2 hours. So you run these Devi circles, it goes very, very deep. So if you have mixed groups, you cannot really go that deep in emotions and all that. And some issues will start happening because we're so conditioned as men and women to not look at each other as souls. When you go that close and that much of sharing emotions, then something will start with your minds and with your so it's better to do just the same gender. And of course, non-binary are welcome in any gender, so that is not a problem. So basically these circles can be very, very powerful. And these circles were there in the ancient past. And there was a lot of this feminine spirituality. Some of the differences were that there was this great freedom and love, and they existed together. A lot of religions today don't have freedom. A lot of rules, and even Jesus, he fought for freedom actually. He didn't like all the temple rules and all of that, which came into Judaism. So his path was to really free Judaism of all kinds of rules that had come in, because the path was of love, just opening up the heart. Of course, Christianity came and they created rules in Jesus's name, which is funny because he fought against those rules, But that's what people do. Enlightened master comes and he goes away, and the followers just create something else. So this matriarchal path had love and freedom, not just all these crazy, ways of rituals and this and that. There was immense freedom in which they existed. All the soul feelings were there. They had great joy, they had great love, immense freedom, great compassion for the earth, so much gratitude. Even goddesses, when they speak today, they always start with thank you. Gratitude lives in the whole universe. Everybody is thanking everybody for, making moments happen. And forgiveness and all of these soul feelings. So they were highly prevalent in those times. And today, Everybody's just struggling with emotions, with stress. What's the most common feeling humanity today? It's stress. Everybody's stressed. What is stress? Stress is simply the mind really like in that survival response, like the animal is in stress. The body's thinking as if it's a matter of survival. It's in constant fear, like what's happening, and that is stress. Because we always take on more than, we're always given more than what we're supposed to do. And there's all this stress to keep everything together, just your daily life together. You got to do your corporate job, you got to come home, you got to do this, you got to take care of the children, and it just adds up, and suddenly you're living in stress. Continuously, that anxiety. And that is not how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to live in love, joy, compassion, freedom, all these soul feelings. It's supposed to be better than animals. Animals are already living in a lot of joy. Many animals, most animals, right? And if you are evolved, you're supposed to be happier than them, right? But what are we? We are much, much, lower on happiness scale. We're continuously unhappy, stressed. And that is like the extreme of Kali Yuga that we've created. So now things are shifting. The shift has to come from within, and within has a definition. It goes through, this is the new wisdom of Saraswati Ma. It used to be in the old religions, body was the most dense, then the mind, then the spirit, then the higher self. And that's not true. Body is not the most superficial. Body is very real, actually. You ask your body something, it speaks the truth. You put your hands on your heart and you ask something, and you get the answer, you follow that. That's actually quite close to the truth. Body is not superficial. Mind is superficial. Mind is the one that is always playing tricks. And so in Saraswati Ma's wisdom, mind is the most superficial, body is more real, soul is even more real, higher self is the most real. And these are four levels of consciousness. And in Kali Yuga, we've all just become mental, just living in mind. That's become our existence. Heady people, everything is mind. That embodiment, feeling it in the body, the breath, feeling nature with the body, excuse me, feeling everything with the body, that, that from that hara point. Hara point is behind the navel, 1 inch and 2 inches below the navel. That's that grounding, that point which is talked about in many cultures. Hara and heart joining, that's the embodiment. You're rooted in the ground and your heart is open. You've got the roots and you've got the wings. That's how you're supposed to live. And most of us are in our head, we're not aware of our bodies. Forget the soul feelings. Higher self, what is that? No idea. So, whatever we cannot immediately comprehend, analyze, think, if it's invisible, we don't pay attention. And you see the current state of Earth. So, in this seventh part, Lakshmi Ma gives a visual, like there's a whole description of how society was, the joy, the leadership, and everything was a bit different. Even beauty was different. It's this patriarchy that's created this anorexic look for women that's considered beautiful. Back then, it was not that. Beauty was not just very thin women. They were not the ones, who were in considered beautiful or or more popular or in leadership. Even the physical uh, reality was different. So, so look what patriarchy has done. It's changed our idea of beauty. It goes very deep. And a lot of women struggle with that because they have to somehow fit in. And the men have been conditioned to see beauty in a certain way, watching movies, television ads, and all of that. And that's conditioned their minds. So everybody's kind of living with some conditioned mind and not feeling their heart. What does my heart say? What is beauty? I mean, it affects us in a very, very basic, fundamental way, all of this patriarchal mindset. So all of that is changing, and we have to reflect upon all of that. And the invitation why I showed you that circle we did yesterday was this coming together. Of course, that was just last we were singing. We did 4, 5 circles in which there was heart sharing, in which there was eye gazing, all kinds of processes where you feel the soul. The whole idea in Devi Circle is try to feel each other's soul, heart and soul. Get beyond the mind, get beyond the thinking mind. So share your emotions, release them in soul feelings. And you can, it really does work. You know why? I give this example, one of my favorite examples is like you have some garbage in the kitchen. And I probably spoke about this yesterday as well. And you take that garbage out and you put it on the kitchen floor. And then you go away for a week. You come back, the bugs have gone into the garbage, the whole house is smelling bad. The garbage doesn't just melt away, right? Now, suppose you could do something else. You could take that kitchen garbage, and let's say it doesn't have any plastic, paper, any of that stuff. It is all organic. And let's say you live in nature, and in nature, you dump the garbage out in the nature, and it's all organic, let's say. You come back after a week, what happens? With some rain and wind, that garbage has become part of the earth. We're not saying just trash your neighborhood, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you're living out in nature and you know, put your organic garbage out in some place where you compost it or whatever, and it will become part of the earth. But it will not become part of the earth on your kitchen floor. Now, this metaphor has a lot to do with how psychology is different from spirituality. Psychology is like the kitchen floor. You go to your therapist and you do psychotherapy and you express your emotions, and the psychotherapist listens. But you've not created the big container like the earth where these emotions can dissolve. So a lot of times people go to psychotherapists for 20 years. Some help is there, but they keep going, they keep going. Emotions keep coming, they keep going. Why don't they dissolve? And you hear spiritual paths, people say, oh, I did this Kriya, and oh my God, my stress is gone. I did this breath process for 40 days, and I'm no longer angry. What's happening? What's happening there? What's happening is that the bigger container, the earth, similarly, you need to dissolve emotions, you need a bigger energy field. You need the infinite soul. You need your body. Psychotherapists don't use your body. They don't use breath. Maybe they would do now. Maybe there is some somatic psychotherapists out there, but at least traditionally they did not. They don't pay attention to the body. Breath and body are the next level of consciousness. This is where Saraswati Ma's wisdom is better than psychology. You can dissolve your emotions in your body. Breathe into them, feel the emotions, and they'll start dissolving. But in Devi circles, what we do, what we did yesterday, as you open the door, you welcome the women for your circle at your house, you start by saying, Welcome, Devi. The whole intention of the entire 2 hours is that you're going to look at each other as a goddess, as Devi. And then you do some wisdom sharing, then you do some, anapanasati that gets your breath going. Then you do heart sharing. That's the most important process. And in the last 2 weeks, whatever happened with your emotions and your spirituality, you just share about that. So you don't share about your, shopping and husbands and none of that. It's only about your emotions and your spirituality. Those are the only two things you can share. So whatever is happening in your spiritual growth and emotions can include anything, including your husband, including your whatever, because it's part of the emotions, right? But the one who's speaking, everybody looks at her like a Devi, like a goddess. This intention is set in Devi circle right from the beginning. So whenever somebody's speaking, nobody will comment, nobody will make suggestions, nobody will give, fix them. Nobody needs fixing. Let the person speak like a Devi. The Devi is having a human experience and they're expressing their emotions. As everybody invokes the Devi, and we place this Devi prayer, which is like just that Devi prayer song just gets the Devis in it, has all the invocations of Devis. It's a very powerful song. Devi energy comes there, the infinity is there. Now, when you're speaking and you are expressing some emotions, they start dissolving. It's like that garbage story where you put the garbage out in earth and it start melting into the earth. Because the emotions need some place to go, their energies. They can go into the body with the breath. Body is much bigger than the mind, it can take it. And then more than body is the soul. So in a circle, by invoking Devi, by looking at each other's Devi, you got the Devi energy. Now when you express the emotions, a lot of women report they really do feel healed because nobody saw them like a Devi. There was so much shame, so much judgment, all of that, and now everybody's looking at you like a Devi. But you fake it till you make it. You practice a little bit, you do it a few more Devi circles, you start feeling the power as a Devi. And as you do that, you invoke soul feelings as a Devi, immense joy, love, compassion, all of that. And it's these soul feelings, which are infinite, they can dissolve the emotions. So you can say, I forgive because I'm feeling so much joy in my soul circle, in my Devi circle. I can forgive. But when you didn't have that circle, when you didn't feel that abundance, you cannot forgive. An unhappy person cannot forgive. You have to come to happiness, to joy, to be able to forgive. This is a great truth. If you're very unhappy with something that happened to you, you'll never be able to forgive. You have to learn to become happy first. And that is why you go inside, you meditate, you create a Devi circle, you invoke the Devi, and it starts working. Now you can forgive, now you can have love, now you can have joy. It's all coming from inside. And because you go so deep, there's crying, there's emotions, there's, release. So it goes much easier in the same gender, Devi circles. Um, and they're happening. And we did one yesterday in Mumbai, and we'll form these circles more and more. So more of these circles spread, and Deva circles can spread too. I've done men's circles, they're beautiful too. And the energy is very pure, and it's amazing to do a men's circle too. Then basically we have to invoke the soul more, use the body more, and divinity. In that, we can dissolve the mind. And as we do that, then we arrive at a more balanced life. And that's the invitation. So, anyway, what I'll do is I'll stop here. Can't believe it's already 9:46. I thought we just started. Uh, so let's do some Q&A. about this part of the book or any other questions you have. We tried to cover the entire book, and hopefully you got the gist of the book. So let's see. Any questions and answers we will provide here. Anybody? Soon we'll have a lot of hands, but people are thinking. Okay.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Uh, you mentioned earlier about the circle formation just before
Yeah.
inviting the Devi energies. Can you
Yeah.
explain it clearly? Because I only learned the PDF format. I did not
Yeah.
experience, so I just want to know more.
So what do you want to know about?
Devi circle energy invocation.
Yeah.
Uh, how does that happen?
How do you invoke the
Is it
Devis?
after sharing experience or before or in the starting?
In the starting. Invoke the Devis right in the beginning. Have you all heard the song Devi Prayer?
Ananda Devi Ma.
Yeah, that is a powerful song to, I mean, I can maybe just play it 1 minute. And I highly encourage all of you, when you do a Devi circle, to really play that song. That's very super powerful and really gets, and it's really Ananda Devi really has that she carries that Lakshmi energy. So with that energy, it really is infused with that energy. And so my favorite one is, so listen to this for maybe 30 seconds. So you can see how powerful this is. You play this Devi prayer for 5-7 minutes, and she's invoked. That's how we begin the Devi session. It's I found this more powerful than, you have all those sound healing baths and all of that. Healers do that. This is even more powerful than that. You play this and boom, you're in this Devi energy. So this is one of our Devi circle invocation mantra, you can call it. And Aham Prema is one of the singing one where we dance together. So there are some of these Devi circle favorite ones. So basically, you set the intention, you play like a Devi mantra like this, and you can play some other kind of Devi songs also. And you start the whole thing by welcoming Devi. You put that intention out there, you play the mantra, you can do some ritual, maybe light some candles and incense. And it doesn't take a lot to bring the Devi energy there. Does that answer it, Sumana?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it is online also, I can light a
Okay.
candle and pray for ma blessings. Light the
Yeah,
candle and start.
online, I mean, you can always light a candle next to you. But generally, yeah, we're hoping more Devi circles can be done offline. They're much more powerful because you're right there, the body language and all of that. But yeah, you can do them online too. And we used to do them online with the COVID and all of that. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah. And
Mm.
we've shared the PDF also, no? How to run a Devi Circle meeting.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have that. So,
I did
yeah.
not see any raised hands yet.
Okay, so
The chat.
anybody have any other questions? Hmm.
In the chat, there is a
Oh,
question.
chat. Let's go for chat. Lots of questions in chat. Yeah, yeah. Oops. Where did my chat go? Here it is. Okay, so Radha and Krishna. Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah. Room was filled with dim vibrations. Yes, this prayer is very beautiful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, we never talked about Radha and Krishna from the book. And so I asked Lakshmi Ma, what was it like to be Radha with Krishna? And she gave a very vivid description. And there were some interesting things because scriptures always can be can be written in that male voice, and sometimes it can be correct, sometimes it can be not completely right. So she says, as Radha, she was pretty independent. So you know how now listen to this in the context of the story of Adam and Eve, Mary Magdalene, Sita. All these stories have been changed. We know that, right? Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute, but she was made into one. Eve, really was getting enlightened, and they took that apple she ate and made her about the sinner, even when she was like enlightened. And so all of these women in history who are empowered women, they've been painted as something negative. So Radha, they've shown her as if she had this great yearning for Krishna, and then she really, all the stories that you've heard, they're slightly off. So what Lakshmi Ma says is Radha, she was pretty independent. By her own choice, she didn't want to marry Krishna. Krishna was more like a father figure to her. There was great love as well. They even danced together. All of that is true. Okay? But how they've shown in scriptures that the relationship was much, much more highly elevated. So they didn't really have a bond like we think that they were lovers and all. They loved each other. They would dance together, but that was it. It was a very high spiritual bond with some affection. There was a deep emotional connection. So everything was there. There was some dancing, there was a physical element, there was an emotional element, there was a spiritual element. But they were at such high vibration that they would be in that bliss already. Even by a little touch, they would be in that bliss. So it was not in the sense how humans get into bliss. It was already they were in that blissful state, and she was pretty independent. And Krishna liked that about her, that she was independent. She had her own thoughts. Every now and then they would even have discussions, and she would have her own thoughts. and uh, and Krishna was really loved her. So she would be like, in the book, Lakshmi says she would be like a battery to him. So then I asked Lakshmi Ma, what do you mean by battery? Like he would not feel charged without her? And so she said, no, 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 no. He would feel charged even without her. Many things made him feel completely charged up, like serving the poor, the needy, or, doing many things where he helped the devotees. That would charge him up too. But Radha definitely would charge him up too, just whenever Radha would visit, he would all get, so he loved her in that way. So they had this profound love, which she calls Vajra love. So what is Vajra love? Vajra means diamond, and that word comes from Vajrayana path. I mean, Vajra in a way, and Vajra love really is a love which is inclusive of all. So it's not just physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, all together, all seven chakras together. It's not just heart love, or it's not just, intellectually I like each other. It's not just, there was a physical element also. But at that high level of vibration, you don't need physical element in the way we understand. They could just dance together and be in complete ecstasy. And they would dance together a lot. So they had this Vajra connection, which was like a complete love, not divided as this or that. It's hard for humans to understand this kind of love, because either we understand love in a devotional way, like Meera loves Krishna, or we think of love as something very not spiritual, very emotional or physical. But Radha and Krishna had all of that together. And that was an interesting detail. And she was more like an older, she was not like 16. This has been changed. So Krishna was also older, and she was more like 30 or 32, something like that, Lakshmi Ma says. And he was more like 50, or, so that was how, when they would come together. She chose to be independent. She came and went when she wanted, and it was more matriarchal then. So men had more wives. Krishna had more wives. Pandavas had more wives. Not everybody had just one wife. It was a matriarchal society. It was more polyamorous then. So it was not that women would get jealous just because Krishna also had Radha as his wife. There was, the jealousy didn't exist. I mean, there could be a world where there is no jealousy. There's only love. That's possible to have that world. So that was the nature of the world. And she chose not to marry him. That was her choice. It is kind of shown a little bit differently in the scriptures, as if she really wanted him and he married Rukmini, and what did she do? She committed suicide. I don't know what is told in scriptures. I have no idea. But there's some stories about Radha which are not true. So she was very independent. She loved herself. She was his equal. So they say between Radha, Rukmini, and Draupadi, all three are Lakshmi Ji's incarnations, and all three are from the same time, around Mahabharata, right? So all three are with Krishna. One of them is the crone, one of them is a matron, and one of them is a maiden. And the matron, crone. Maiden is like the young one who's more like 17, 18, 20-year-old, or even older, but she's maiden energy. And matron is a mother. And crone is an older, wise woman, enlightened woman. So which one do you think out of the three is the maiden? This is the quiz for you all. When who is the matron and who's the crone? You can write on the chat between Radha, Rukmini, and Draupadi. So matron Rukmini. Rukmini was a wife, and Radha was the crone. Radha is the wisest one, the most enlightened one. According to Lakshmi Ma, she was born on a lotus flower, right? She was born. Her birth is very interesting. Very few. There are three kinds of births, and we'll talk about that. So Draupadi is the maiden. Draupadi had three chakras open and she was going into the heart. Sometimes her heart would be very open, other times her heart was not so open, but she was getting into the heart, getting completely open. But she was enlightened in the sense three chakras were totally open. So Draupadi was also somebody very wise and enlightened, but their enlightenment has different levels. So she was a maiden, and she took Krishna as her, you know, as her master. Draupadi did, and Radha was equal to Krishna. Radha was really equal, as enlightened, and she was older. So we paint this Radha as somebody who's yearning for Krishna and all that, and who is just in love, and she doesn't. So that is not the whole story. Radha is Krishna's equal. That's why, because these truths will come, because these divine beings are channeling humans all the time. So you go to Vrindavan, and there's a reason why everybody there just says Radhe Radhe. Anybody will be crossing you and they'll go Radhe Radhe. Hello is Radhe Radhe. Namaste is Radhe Radhe. Traffic jam, people coming from the left side, right side, they'll go Radhe Radhe. The whole city is just doing Radhe Radhe all the time. And it just didn't come about from no reason. These people have been meditating, and Radha has been there in that city. So they've become like that over centuries, right? So Radha is completely Krishna's equal. She's the crone, she's the enlightened one. And that is why if you can find Radha, you found Krishna. So that is something I felt was different in Lakshmi Ma's voice when she said, Rukmani is the matron. So crone means she's the wisest one. And matron is like the mother energy, and Rukmani is that. And Draupadi at the time when the story is going on is with the maiden. Of course, she also had children and all that, so she also became matron. But the energy was more how Draupadi, she made fun of Duryodhana when whatever happened in that palace, and then Duryodhana got very insulted. So that is more maiden like, just laugh, and like it's more that young energy. So Draupadi carried that very young energy, and it was like enlightened, but in a very young energy way. So that is interesting. And what I was gonna say, yeah, about the three kinds of births. So Radha was born on a lotus. She came like that. And there are some other people who've been born like that. Just fully birthed child comes on earth. So another one is Padmasambhava, the Vajrayana master. He came like fully born on the lotus. So that's one kind of birth. That requires, for that soul to birth like that, has to be very highly enlightened to be able to do that. So Radha was quite enlightened to be able to even birth like that. And Padmasambhava did that, and he became the rainbow body master in Tibet, which started the third path in Buddhism. And yeah, Draupadi from fire. You're right. Draupadi came from fire, but she did not come as a human birth. No, you're right. Draupadi came from fire. Padmasambhava came from the lotus. But you can be born just from the elements by manifesting. That is the point. Right? And what I meant to say was Radha. I used the word Draupadi. Radha was born. Did I say Draupadi? I meant Radha. Radha came on the lotus, and I just used the word Draupadi. But Draupadi came from fire. Radha was born on the lotus, and Padmasambhava was born on the lotus. Came fully formed. Second kind of birth is immaculate conception, which is how all the Kunti's children, all the 5 Pandavas came, and Karna came like that too. So you did not need a father, they just came from gods. Women used to be able to do that by this amazing bliss they would create by meditation in their body, and that bliss would become the seed and they would somehow birth. They didn't need a man. This happened with Mother Mary, this happened with Kunti. So this is immaculate conception. And then the third kind of birth is your normal birth. So three ways you can be born, and Radha is the one we were talking about. It was just a slip of mind that I used the word Draupadi. Radha came like that, completely on the lotus. And so she was Krishna's equal. She was as enlightened. They would talk through the stars. They were psychic, and they would, he would miss her. At that time, it was a little more fluid. It was not, love was not like you could only love one woman, because it was a little more matriarchal, but it was such high frequency that they did not have like a physical relationship. They didn't, Radha and Krishna. They didn't have to. If you're completely enlightened to people, you don't need a physical relationship. Just holding hands and you're in the same bliss. So they didn't have to have any physical relationship. They didn't have any physical relationship. But they would still dance together. Some body parts would touch and they would dance. That's what the book says. And that was their bond. This physical relationship ends at the level of fifth chakra. Once you go into the sixth and seventh, the fire is completely internalized. Then you don't need a physical bond. And they were already there, Radha and Krishna. So yes, you can say they are in that same energy, but they don't need a physical relationship to be in that energy. And that is interesting. So they were that enlightened. Okay.
There is other question in the chat. So.
Okay, yeah. So Draupadi came from fire, that is true. And I meant to say Radha came from the lotus. And Rukmani have a human birth? Yeah, as far as I know, Rukmani did have a human birth. But yeah, she's also Lakshmi Ma's incarnation. माता पार्वती और महादेव के बारे में कुछ बताएं प्लीज उनका या so this is in the next book. This is also a very interesting story, which this next book is going to be like a lot of people. By the way, if you can do me, I don't know how you would do it, we will organize something. I just learned from the goddesses, something crazy is going on. So on Amazon, they've taken away our book, and 500 copies were removed without Sumana or I asking for the removal. Okay, so right now you cannot buy our book. So I've been meditating and I just got this message that there's some foul play going on Amazon. So you know how people they go hearsay. So somebody does not like that this book is claimed to be from Lakshmi and Saraswati. So there's somebody motivated and they've just taken the book out from Amazon. Sumana and I have been very puzzled by this. She and I are the only two people who can create a removal of inventory. We had 500 books there and they've just gone. They disappeared. They're sitting with some blue dart, I don't know, some service, but then they say they don't have it. And this is like my 10th call to Amazon. They're not solving it. So something strange going on with my book also, with my first book. Now the second book is coming out, and with second book we have stories about Shiva and Parvati. And we think all the time that it's very interesting. We think all the time that Shiva is enlightening Parvati. Parvati Ma is always asking questions, Shiva is answering, right? That's the story we've been told. Kind of true. So You have two great channelings between Shiva and Parvati. One is the Nadi Shastras, thumbprint readings. Anybody got it done? Thumbprint readings, Nadi readings. Anybody knows about it? No. It's you look up Nadi readings on Google, you'll find it, right? So Parvati Ma channeled this in 4th century, which is in the first book, and maybe some other people channeled too, but she was one of the major forces. She came as a Buddhist monk, got enlightened when she was 30. For 40 years, then she channeled these messages from Lord Shiva. My own Nadi opened, and it had my name, my birth name, and it had my mother's name and my father's name, and it had my birth date, 11th October 1963. And it doesn't have the city, I don't think so, but it had my birth date and the day, Friday. And my Nadi knew my correct birth date, but my passport doesn't, because my father somehow on my birth certificate put 10th October. Till today, my passport has 10th October. But one day we were looking at our astrology charts, which were made when we were born. That said 11th October. So I knew my birthday is 11th October a long time ago. But my Nadi reading also knew. The guy announced 11th October. So they're that powerful. In 4th century, she knew that I would be born on 11th October 1963. That's something, right? And so she channeled these, thousands of these, tens of thousands of these. Parvati Ma did. And so I asked her questions about that. And then the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, in which also Parvati Ma is asking all the questions to Shiv Bhagwan, and Shiv Bhagwan is answering. And Vigyan Bhairav Tantra is really an amazing set of, shlokas, and it's beautiful. It comes from a time which is between, 6th and 9th centuries, which is when they were made. Very powerful. So in both of them, Parvati Ma is asking Lord Shiva. So then I asked Parvati Ma, what's going on? You're also pretty enlightened. I didn't say it like that, of course, but the thoughts were in my mind. So I asked her, so what's the story behind this? And so in this next book, it comes out that she is asking Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is channeling Adi Shakti. And Adi Shakti is her higher self. So Lord Shiva is channeling her to herself. So that's pretty interesting. But it's not exactly the same, because as Parvati, she was more, she says, in the 9th dimension. And as Adi Shakti, she was in the 12th dimension. So there's a slight difference. Adi Shakti is more like her higher self. So as Parvati Ma, she's his wife and lover. As Adi Shakti, she's Shiva's mother. So Lord Shiva has both the mother and the wife, and that's the feminine. The both kinds of love are there, which is the same stream of higher self, Adi Shakti, then Parvati. And so every time you see these stories of Parvati Ma is asking Lord Shiva and he's giving her the wisdom, he's also channeling Adi Shakti. Isn't that interesting how feminine, masculine, all that goes on and on with the higher self? So that's something interesting coming. But how Parvati got enlightened, when the story goes where she is young girl, and at 4 years age, she's dreaming of this guy, this man who's, looks like Shiva. He's sitting and he's meditating as a 4-year-old, and it was her soul path. She was Sati in her previous life, and now she was Parvati. So and she has come to awaken him to the water element, because he has too much fire. So every time he opens his third eye, somebody gets burnt, or incinerated or whatever, So because he's been doing that for hundreds of thousands of years, cleaning the earth, right? So he's become used to that, and it's all bliss coming out. Fire is bliss. So he's got so much bliss in him that you disturb him slightly, the bliss pours out and somebody gets incinerated. And so they are, and he's in that shamanic state, a little bit less than fully enlightened state, because if he was fully enlightened, it'd be completely balanced. But he's done that purposely because Earth has to be cleansed. So Earth has density and it has to be cleansed. So then he's doing this work. And this is actually a parallel Earth, kind of connected to our Earth. That's also another twist to the story. So in this little parallel Earth, this is all unfolding. So Parvati Ma comes, and all the goddesses are there now to add the water element. They want to have this love awakened in him. And so Parvati Ma goes, and she is a young maiden. She's 16, 17, and she takes the help of Lord Kama because she knew it was going to be tough. She was third eye open, psychic, and it was not going to be easy to awaken Lord Shiva. He's in meditation, so he's meditating. And both of them come, and then Lord Kama, then he shoots these arrows of love. He's like the Cupid in the Western culture. He's like the one who's going to awaken love in him. So these arrows hit him on the chest, and then he just opens his eyes. And it was not that he's angry or anything. Lord Shiva cannot be angry. Lord Shiva is just filled with bliss. But when you disturb him, the bliss will pour out, right? So he's disturbed, and the eyes open, and the first person he sees is Lord Kama. And boom, the bliss goes out to him, and like the burning sun, sun is full of bliss actually. Sun is bliss, but it creates a scorching desert. The heat is too strong. Heat is joy, but if you're not enlightened, you will not be able to take it. So he's incinerated right there, and that shakes up Parvati as a young woman. She gets completely distraught, and she walks. And then she walks just guided by her higher self, and walks and walks. And then she goes to this mountain and finds this little hut, this little, not hut, but hut-like structures, this kind of a little retreat. And she goes there, and these women are waiting for her. They are these kind of enlightened women who knew that Devi Ma is coming, Shakti is coming, so they were waiting for her. And she's not enlightened at that point because she's come in this as a sentient being. So she meets them, and they assure her that, just stay here, her sorrow will melt away with time. And she stays there, and then she engages in learns all these matriarchal practices with breath and yoga. This is where yoga is being created, by the way. So it's actually Adi Yogini, by the way, people. It's not Adi Yogi. That story is changing in the next book. Because Shiva's just meditating. He's not teaching yoga. He's not learning yoga. He's not doing all these positions, right? It was Parvati Ma who was experimenting with all kinds of yoga. So she did all these practices with breath, with body, twisting, curling, bending, stretching, lifting, all of that. And intense sadhanas. She even walked in nature for days, sometimes even without clothes. All of that she did. And finally, she gets enlightened. And because she's working with 6 other women, there's a Devi circle. So there's a mirror. So she can process, if there's some emotion, she can process with the help of this circle. She says Lord Shiva, one of the issues was that he didn't have any mirror because he's alone meditating. But she had these mirrors, so she gets fully enlightened, all 7 chakras open. Lord Shiva is with the 6 chakras open. He's purposely only 6 chakras open because he's come into density. He's helping clean the earth. A lot of demonic energies and all that, preparing earth for its journey that will go in the future. So Lord Shiva is doing all this work for tens of hundreds of thousands of years. He was doing that. And so enlightened masters, they can sometimes come in a slightly less state of enlightenment. Otherwise, they cannot stick in the density. You need to be, to ground yourself, you have to become like a bodhisattva, not a Buddha. You're not completely enlightened. So then, and of course, uh, when the time comes, then you can, of course, get fully enlightened again. So Parvati Ma then sends these waves of bliss because she's all seven chakras open to Lord Shiva. And he's completely shaken up and in such bliss that he's not experienced before. So he suddenly meditates and he sees, oh, it's the same girl who had come to see me once, and she's sending me all this bliss. Then, of course, she reaches out to him, they get together, and then the stories begin of, all their in the scriptures, then they get married or whatever. And so she enlightens him as they then join together in their physical union. He then, her seven chakra opens. And and that is tantra. Tantra is really a very high level of practice. When somebody is so enlightened that their six, seven chakras open, and then they reach out to somebody who's kind of quite enlightened, then both can get fully enlightened. That can happen with Tantra. But Tantra is not like what they teach in the West, where you are not even Sotapanna enlightened, you're not even at the first level of enlightenment, and you're practicing Tantra, nothing will happen. You'll just move some energy around, you'll just have feel some pleasure, and then you'll go away, but there's nothing spiritual about it. That's not Tantra. Tantra comes at the end, not at the beginning. When you're very enlightened, then you can offer that enlightenment to somebody who's close to enlightenment. That's the only time when Tantra really works in the way that in the scriptures. Otherwise Tantra is a self practice. The lower chakras, higher chakras joining together, but it's within you. And you have to come to a very high state of enlightenment. Only then you can reach out to a partner, but not in the beginning stages. So then he gets enlightened, and he yeah. So that is an interesting story that's coming in the next book about Shiva and Parvati, how her how she gets fully enlightened, how she reaches out to him. Then there are more stories about, he got enlightened, but there's something still there. And then there's more work. There's a story of Ganesha, how that unfolded. So there's stories within stories. But there is something that she is showing, which is very beautiful, about Adi Shakti, about her, and how Lord Shiva fits in there. And both of them been there for, almost eternity. So they come in multi-dimensional ways. One is as rainbow bodies, another is through another planet where the story unfolds, because they become those beings who can manifest in multiple ways. So as rainbow body beings, they've been here since Himalaya was formed. Okay, so rainbow body beings are beings which are beings of light. And she says Mataji and Babaji, Mata Babaji, have been there, as that is her and Lord Shiva, from the time when Himalayas were formed. So if you research Himalayas, they were formed 50 million years ago. That's when the Eurasian plate and the Indian plate came together and Himalayas rose. So she has memories of the water receding while they are sitting in the cave, and the water going below their body, as Parvati Ma, as Mataji and Babaji. And so it seems like, what? 50 million years ago? What does that even mean? And then you go, okay. So the whole planets, when they get prepared for eons. Because Earth is going to have its own enlightenment. and masters come, and then they. So there are these story. Yeah, go on. No, that's just some disturbance. So so that is another dimension of Shiva and Parvati. As rainbow body beings, they've been here forever. But this story is more recent, where Lord Kama and all that, that comes from another parallel world. And that story was then channeled by the rishis in this earth, who just meditated and they got this information. And Lord Shiva is healing our earth also through Mount Kailash, which is a portal. But Lord, in that birth which we talk about, they were not on this earth, on this physical earth, but there are parallel worlds which are similar to this earth, and they are sending all this energy from there. So when you say Shiva is God, it literally is true in this sense that he's been here forever, like for eternity. As rainbow body master, as so when they say Shiva, why Shiva is so treated like complete God, because he is one. He's been around forever. But so is Mataji, so is Parvati Ma. They've been there for a long time. But a lot of wisdom of their relationship, and somewhat even the Eastern tantric flavor of wisdom, not the Western, which is very different, which has to do with spirituality. That is also a big flavor in this book. How how the women lived in the circles and the matriarchal path and all of that. So Babaji's story is also not accurate. What is the Babaji story? Divya, you wrote that? Oh yeah, I'm not aware of that. He might have been kidnapped, but I'm not aware of that story. So he could have. I mean, your rainbow body master, you can always manifest as incarnate. You can always incarnate as a divine being. So maybe there could be a story where he incarnated, but I'm talking about Babaji as a rainbow body master. And Mataji is even in the book. Mataji is even in a deeper state of emptiness. So a lot of people can channel Babaji, but they don't channel Mataji so much. Why is that? When you read Autobiography of a Yogi, even Babaji is asking Mataji, right? Mataji is the one who tells them that he has to still play out his role in this universe. And she is like a presence which is even higher in some ways, because he listens to her. And in the book, Parvati Ma says that she was just in a deeper place of emptiness. So there are dimensions, and there are dimensions beyond dimensions. So you can be a rainbow body master, and there could be even something more empty than that, a deeper place of emptiness, because spiritual growth is forever. And you can be even more empty and more empty. The bliss goes on increasing as the emptiness goes on increasing. But the more empty you are, harder you are for humans to reach. That's the meaning of Kuan Yin saying that I want everybody, every sentient being to get enlightened before I'll get fully enlightened. What she's really saying is that I don't want to become so empty, so enlightened that I'm not reachable. So when you get so empty, you're not reachable. How do you reach? Because you can only, if you are dense, we can only go so far. If there's steps to climb, you can hold the hand of somebody next to you. But if they're really far ahead, how can you hold their hand? So that's the meaning of that. And Mataji is even more in that state of emptiness. So you reach through Babaji, but not so much through Mataji. There are not so many stories of people channeling Mataji. Everybody's channeling Babaji. So that's another interesting. Now you had a hand, Shruti?
Sir, before that, I would like to ask one more question. There is a question in the chat. How is
Yeah.
um, Emptiness related to matriarchal leadership or something.
Yeah, so emptiness is of the mind, right?
Mm.
No minds. And where there's no mind, there's heart. Heart is in full bloom, the mind is rested. So matriarchal simply means heart leadership, not just thinking leadership. Thinking has limitations. Thinking can only work on survival. Thinking is needed for survival. Beyond survival, when you are thriving, then you need a heart. If your survival is guaranteed, you don't need to think, right? If you get food, shelter, and your survival is completely guaranteed, safety is completely guaranteed, you don't have to think, right? Then you can just be in the heart. So, matriarchal way is a heart way, and it has emptiness. Emptiness means what? Dissolving beliefs, dissolving expectations, dissolving judgments, dissolving all your perspectives, identities, the mind, the thought aggregates. You're just dissolving them all.
That's
You're
the way
just
to
going beyond.
matriarchal leadership.
Yeah, so that once all of that is dissolved, then there's only heart left. There's only direct connection of the soul and the heart. And that is the matriarchal leadership. It's not so much survival. Right now, we have survival based leadership. Everybody's fighting, and countries are fighting, and men are fighting, and companies are fighting. Everybody just fighting, fighting, fighting. If you put a bunch of mothers in the corporate boards and make them presidents of countries and prime ministers of countries, and if they're loving mothers, we will have a different earth. It won't be just for survival, it will be for thriving, for enlightening human beings. It would be for, helping Mother Earth. Would be completely different. So that's matriarchal leadership.
Rakshaji asked, how can we practice matriarchal leadership in our lives when we are working more in male-dominated work culture? How can we retain our vibrations?
Yeah, so
I think this is
create
the
Devi
answer
circles.
just we discussed, but not answered this last line. How can we retain our vibration is the left
In this society, how do we retain our vibration, right? I
male-dominated.
don't, yeah, so this is exactly the reason why you create Devi circles.
Mm.
You need a self practice, which is you do Devi Kriya, you do whatever, some breathing processes, yoga practice, this, that. But then you also need your pod, you also need your circle. It's so important. Buddha talked about having a sangha all the time. And if you're just alone and you're in a joint family or with just a nuclear family and you're the only one practicing spirituality and people are just doing their own thing, watching TV all the time, and you feel very lonely, you need your circle to support you. So that's the Devi circle. So if you have a self practice and you create your Devi circle, then you'll be able to bring more of that feminine matriarchal presence because I'll keep nourishing you. That is how Lakshmi Ma envisions it. She's been talking about Devi circles for the last 15 years, since 2007 or 8. These women circles have to grow, and that'll just change the whole world. I believe that.
Yeah,
Everybody believes their own medicine, and her medicine is just create women circles.
that's
More and more of these
medicine.
get created.
Mm.
Yeah, they'll change the earth because they'll start building leadership.
Sorry.
Okay, let's go to Shruti now. Your hand was raised for a while, right?
Yeah.
You want to unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Um, actually, while listening to it, I had a few questions, but I don't know, they just sort of melted away. But I'll just thought of some. Okay. Who does Shiva meditate upon? Adi Shakti always, or is it like uh, it was just for that time when you talked about like when Parvati Ma used to ask questions. But who does Shiva actually meditate upon all the time?
So it's not as divided as we think in a way, right?
Okay.
When you are at that level of enlightenment, you're almost one with Adi Shakti. It's not like you are different so much. But yeah, there's slight difference because you are sitting, meditating, and but you're feeling that complete oneness, right? Now, what is that higher self? In the book, it says that Adi Shakti is in 12th dimension. So almost every god, everybody we've known in this universe comes from that. So she's like the higher self of everybody, including Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Everybody's higher self is Adi Shakti. Okay. Now, does that mean 13th, 14th dimension don't exist? Maybe they do. But maybe that's when two universes come together. We don't know. But she's talking about this earth, this universe. Everybody goes to 12th. But there could be more. There could be higher selves, higher self of Adi Shakti, and their higher self, because the word is always higher. It's never highest,
Yes.
because spiritual growth is forever, right? So, but as you become even fifth, sixth dimension, there's a big unity. So you don't feel you are not them. So Shiva is Adi Shakti. Adi Shakti is Shiva at that point, with slight difference. Yeah, there's a slight Shiva, and then there's Adi Shakti. There's a very slight difference, but they're almost the same. So he's not, in a way, meditating on her, he's one with her. So there's no thoughts as such. There's only this timeless bliss or emptiness, and and in that state, it all depends on what the purpose is of what the soul path is of the earth. So every now and then, with time, something will change, something needs to be done, and then these bodhisattvas and Shiva and all of them, they might act in a certain way to help for that time, and again they're in that timeless bliss. So in that
It's
way,
very interesting to know
yeah.
about Shiva and Parvati. It's very interesting. And I've heard in there was this series called Mahadev, and they talked about that everyone was trying to bring Shiva and Parvati or Shiva and Sati together because Shiva separated Shakti from him for the creation purpose. So how do you separate, or is it even true? How do you separate Shakti from yourself in like voluntarily?
So sometimes, to play out the contrast, souls will descend, and we all were gods, we all were divine beings, and we've come into Kali Yuga. How did that happen? So it's a slow process from Satyuga to Treta to Dwapar to Kali Yuga. Slowly, the soul becomes less of the higher self, and I guess you don't do it intentionally at a mind level. It's done at the soul level, and the soul is doing it. Why? My soul falling,
Your experience.
but why? Well, there's a creative law of opposites. So here's the higher self expanding in more bliss. But if the higher self is expanding into more bliss, the opposite gets created too.
Hmm.
What is the opposite of bliss? Suffering, right? But suffering gets divided into an infinite
Parts.
unit. Yeah. So not everybody feels the same level. But the bliss of the higher self is infinite, it's expanding. And so you create more dimensions, more universes, time, space. Same soul doesn't feel pain in one life, divides it up into many lives. I had one aunt who passed away 4 5 years ago, my mother's younger sister. She went insane when she was 20. For 45 years, she lived like almost like a mad person in the house because the husband didn't want to send her away to an these asylums, insane mental asylums. So in the house, it's crazy stuff happening many times, and she would do all kinds of things to herself. A lot of suffering, causing to family, to herself. So then, when she passed away, we asked the goddesses what was the deal with this aunt. Like, why so much suffering? And the answer was her soul decided to burn 3 lifetimes of karma in just one lifetime.
Which
So,
is
so that's a little more intense pain, right? Generally, we don't do that. We come into many lifetimes because we want to divide up the suffering and don't not feel so much suffering in one life, right? That's why this time, space, all of that, because you can divide up the suffering. We don't mind a little bit of suffering, right? That's fine. And when we come back, then when we go back as souls and become one with the higher self, because the clock turns also, you fall, and then you go back. And when you go back and become the higher self, then you feel that expansion, the infinity. Then the magic happened. You are feeling the infinite bliss, but the price that you paid was only finite suffering. That's a good deal, right?
and how can bliss incinerate someone like Shiva does? Bliss is like joy is. It spreads. It feels good. It feels joyful. How can bliss incinerate someone?
It is true. It is true. Sun, if you read in the first book, the inside of the sun is filled with intense bliss. Those 6 million degree temperatures. What do you think the inside of this is a question actually in the first book. So when you imagine the sun, what do you imagine, Shruti? What do you think it is like?
Heat.
Heat, right?
Yeah, like how I feel when I'm like super angry.
And that's not at all what the inside of the sun is like. Inside of the sun is filled with bliss, intense bliss.
Is that white,
Those
central white sun you're
explosions,
talking about?
those explosions are bliss explosions. Helium merging and sorry, hydrogen merging and becoming helium, and those explosions, they're like ecstatic bliss creations. So because we're in the density, we experience that as pain. But if you were not in density, if you were in emptiness, you would experience bliss. That's why we go, soul is more empty, right? Body is more empty than mind, and soul is more empty than the body. And so, soul experience is very different. That's why this soul doesn't get burned, soul doesn't get wet, soul is not exposed to all the physical stuff because it's empty of all of this. And so we project our sensations onto, or our mind onto the universe, but that's not how the universe is.
Yeah,
That is just our imagination, our conditioned
projection.
mind, thinking,
Yeah.
projection. But that's not really what's happening in the sun, right?
When I see you, like since like the first time I've seen you, you're like a very balanced masculine and feminine. So how can we not project as wounded feminine or wounded female or wounded masculine? Like, how can one be more balanced?
And that's also coming in the next book, Yin Yang Balance. So, heart is a great place for balance. Feel the heart, feel the energy, feel one way to be balanced is be grounded in the body, open to soul feelings, and have a devotional practice because sometimes life gets intense, you need the divine help also. So, in the four levels of consciousness, just don't pay so much attention to the mind. Mind is needed, you need to work, right? But be in the body every day, breathe, feel the body, feel the body when you are dealing with crisis. Feel the hara point, feel your sitting, feel your, just feeling yourself in a meeting and feeling the body while you're responding, feeling the breath while you're responding, you'll come out much more balanced, the answer. Just experiment with that. And if you're not aware of the body and breath, and when you speak, it'll be more of that either emotions will start showing, either too angry, either too shy, either too subdued or too aggressive. It'll be, either the wounded feminine will be, you know, afraid and nobody loves me and all that stories. And the wounded masculine will be like, I'll just eat you up and I'm so angry and, that kind of aggression. And so to stay balanced into neither, start breathing, feel the body, invoke the heart, feel love, feel compassion, and then with the body groundedness, speak, not just the soul, not just trying to be kind, feeling the whole body, feeling the energy, and then speak, and then it comes out balanced. Feeling your breath and speaking with confidence, maybe that'll go even farther, and people will feel that gravity of what you're saying because you are so we're all subconscious people at some level. Consciously, we see what we're saying, but some of our judgments, oh, she sounds so confident, but you can't name it why you feel she sounds so confident. Because the subconscious is watching you being so grounded. You're not in a hurry, you're speaking when you want to speak. And then you'll adjust, you'll calibrate. If it goes too slow, you'll add more words, Otherwise, they'll go, isko kya ho gaya? She just like, but you'll calibrate. But overall, the more you're in your body and your soul, the more balanced you are. Yes, the book should be coming. Hopefully, it's coming soon. This time we might be getting a publisher to do it. These publishers always take some time, but I'll see if I can circulate something within a month, like maybe something will circulate. It's got some, yeah, it's a lovely book, so you'll love it. Yeah, I'm hoping you'll love it. Yeah. Okay, so namaste, everybody. Good night. So nice to see you all. Great session. Thank you, Barka. Thanks for joining. And everybody, yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, we'll end the session now. Thank you.